Welcome to another episode of From Garage to Growth. And this is the podcast where we explore the transformative power of entrepreneurship. And we speak with the movers and shakers within the entrepreneurship ecosystem. I'm your guest, Brian. And on today's episode, we're speaking with Benjamin, a seasoned executive with over 25 years of experience in venture capital, private equity, strategy consulting, and startup acceleration. And on today's episode, we'll be looking at Benjamin's work with Earlybird and specifically looking at Vision Labs, which is a hub within Earlybird that looks at immigrant founders and looks at promoting immigrant founders, looking at the challenges within immigrant founders. So just to kickstart things off, I'd just like to give you the floor for you to introduce yourself, give us a rough idea of who you are and what you guys do at Earlybird in terms of Vision Labs as well.
Okay, thanks, Brian. First of all, Ben is fine, and we can use the short version. I am originally mostly German, 3/4 German, 1/4 Bulgarian, but I've lived abroad a large part of my life, so I actually have experience as a migrant, not in Germany, but in other countries. After my MBA, I went to Russia for 20 years in the days when we were still optimistic and thought it's going to develop into a market economy and a democracy. Unfortunately, that has turned out to not happen, but I think that gave me a perspective on how it is to live in another country, in another culture, with another language. And I came back to Germany about 10 years ago and started to work with Earlybird 3 years ago, originally advising some of the portfolio companies, but then I heard of the Vision Lab, which was started by the Earlybird partners, and I said, wow, this is a great concept. Started as a volunteer, as a mentor to support the Vision Lab. And then I was offered the position of partner. And so now since 2021, I am managing the Vision Lab in a small team, which consists of one working student, Franziska, and me. And that's the whole team.
Oh, nice. So Vision Lab itself as a thing, what was the initial idea behind creating it? Whether the founders were like, oh, we need to create a platform that specifically focuses on immigrant founders within the Berlin ecosystem or the German ecosystem?
Yeah, I think the Earlybird partners had two things in mind. First of all, where can we help? Where can we do something good? It was just an idea to do a pro bono project. And migrant founders, on the other hand, are not just somebody who needs help. They are actually very strong entrepreneurs and a very interesting category of startups to invest in. So we thought we get the best of both worlds. We support them with an incubation program, but we also invest in them through the fund, the Vision Lab Fund. So that was started in 2021.
Right. So the fund itself, or when people want to apply for, what process would they have to go through in order to be considered? And what level of immigrant level would they have to be in order to be eligible to be part of the program?
There are basically only two formal criteria. First of all, one of the co-founders has to be first-generation migrant, meaning born outside of Germany. The others can be from wherever. And the second one, it has to be a German entity. But that's really just the formal side of things. We're looking for really cool entrepreneurs who have an idea that is what we call a venture case. So it has to be defendable and it has to be scalable, meaning there needs to be some kind of IP, intellectual property, a brand, or some kind of protection against competition, and it needs to be scalable. And that's basically the criteria. The application is super easy. You just write an email to visionlab, one word, @earlybird.com with a pitch deck. And you describe who you are and just say that you're interested in applying. And then we will interview you, have a look at your pitch deck, and then make the decision every 6 to 7 months, roughly.
Okay. So the Vision Labs initiative offers a comprehensive 6-month program with workshops, seminars, and individual mentorships. Could you elaborate on the key components of this program and how do you address unique challenges that immigrant founders face?
Sure. So the program, as you said, is 6 months long. It is mostly virtual, meaning there are online workshops, roughly 1 or 2 every week. And the workshops are done, again, pro bono by us and very, very strong corporate partners who also basically donate their time. For example, Bain, the consultancy, they dedicate one Bain team to every startup team for the 6 months. So this is too senior. And 2 junior Bain consultants who will check in every 2 to 4 weeks with the startup, give them advice and support them along the way. Egon Zehner, which is a well-known German headhunter, they do workshops on leadership. They host a progress review and provide all kinds of networking support. Handelsblatt is doing media support, and many, many others whom I cannot mention here. All of the partners and we also do these workshops online. We have 3 physical events. The first one is a kickoff where all the teams get to know each other. This is done at the Bain offices because they will be so deeply involved with every startup. Then in the middle of the program, we have a progress review where each startup is matched with a top mentor, sometimes from the Egon Zehner network, who have really good access to senior people from us and so on. So the startups will meet the mentors, 12 startups and 12 mentors. For the progress review, it's a full day event where they pitch and then they do a master class together and a speed dating so that every mentor meets every startup. The most important event, of course, is the demo day. This is a public event, so we invite all investors and anyone who is interested. This is where basically the startups graduate, as we say. They demonstrate, they pitch and show their idea to investors.
The demo day, is that done virtual? Or?
No, the 3 I just mentioned are physical events. Okay. So the kickoff, the progress review, and the demo day. But it's a physical event. It takes place in Berlin. The next one is on the 11th of July at SAP Data Space near Hackesham.
Okay, so you spoke about this, connecting these startups with all these other groups. So this is a significant around networking. How do you facilitate meaningful connection between immigrant founders and the wider Berlin ecosystem in order to introduce them into terms, this is who you can speak to, this is the place where you have to be, this is where your company, especially let's say you work in fintech, how do you go about showing people this is who you need to speak to within the fintech space?
Well, first of all, it's not just Berlin, it's all of Germany. So the startups that apply to our program can be anywhere in Germany. And as I said, the only requirement is that it's a German legal entity. And because most of the events are virtual, it doesn't matter. Indeed, the physical events are in Berlin. And that, of course, is one of the main platforms to really get the startups connected. When we do the progress review, we select 12 top mentors to talk, and not just talk to support one startup. And we have had in the past people like Sebastian Detmer, the CEO of Stepstone, Marie-Helene Amitsweiter, the managing partner of Speed Invest. So these are people of really high caliber who support the startups. And I think why they come is because they like the idea. And again, they all do it pro bono voluntarily. And that's, I think, the strength of our program is to send a message and say, here's very exciting startups and a chance to support them.
Yeah, that's nice. So in Germany specifically, close to 4 startups are founded by immigrant founders. How do you perceive the notion of immigrant founders as this group of people that are not leading, but are contributing largely to the German ecosystem in terms of creating opportunities within the Berlin ecosystem or the German ecosystem?
Well, first of all, if you look at the states which are leading in venture capital and startups in general, it's a much higher percentage than in Germany. And in particular, if you look at the successful ones. So in that respect, we're actually just way behind. We're lagging. But I think it's still a very high proportion of startup founders who are migrants. And particularly here in Berlin, of course, it's a bit of a bubble. It's a very international scene and people love to come here and not just work, but also live in Berlin. So I think in other parts of Germany, it's much more difficult and you'll see a lower percentage. But I think what really differentiates the migrant founders is that they come very determined. They have a purpose. They have stamina. They have, maturity. And I think that makes them a very strong category of founders to invest in and very resilient. And I think that's the attraction of investing into this segment. So that's why we said we're not only going to support them, but actually we're going to invest.
Yeah, so you spoke about the resilience of immigrant founders and the determination within the cohorts that you guys have been running. Can you tell us a little stories from any successful cohorts that you've ran and the issues that they've been through and where they are currently?
First of all, business-wise, I don't see any difference. It doesn't matter the color. People have tech ideas, and if they're good ideas, we will support them. So from that point of view, I couldn't differentiate what's migrant, what's not migrant. In terms of selection, right? In our program, every startup is founded by migrant founders. But I think some stories, we, for example, have a super nice and hardworking and hustling founder in the second cohort. The company is called CoTasker, Tariq Abu Samra. He's actually a refugee from Syria, and he's a repeat founder. So he came to Germany, he went through the whole system, and basically picked himself up and said, okay, I'm going to found a business. And he started CoTasker, which is a platform for handymen and help in the house and around the house. And doing this very successfully. He raised almost $1 million after our program in pre-seed money, and is building his platform starting in Berlin, and now has expanded to, I don't know exactly, but 5 cities or so in Germany. A lot of it bootstrapped because it's not a huge amount of money that was thrown after the startup. It's hard work, and he's the kind of guy who will do this always with a smile, never taking a no, and always getting up and doing the hard job in a super nice way.
Yeah, so especially if you're bootstrapping, it's one of the most difficult things to do because you kind of have to go out and source the money yourself. So it's very difficult. So what's this? So the Immigrant Founders Monitor report highlights a lot of issues that migrant founders face, such as racism, language barriers, and of course, within the German ecosystem, the boogeyman, which is known as the bureaucratic system, which is very difficult. Can you share some of the insights in terms of how do you guys as Vision Labs go about maneuvering all these issues for immigrant founders?
Yes, we just had a case of one founder who has a PhD done in Germany, worked for many years in really high-paying jobs, then decided to become a founder. And now he's in some weird visa problems between receiving either permanent, permanent residence, or even citizenship. I don't know, but he's stuck somewhere in between, and all of a sudden he falls between the cracks. So, as you said, the German bureaucratic system is just a nightmare. One of the things we do, we have one module by a visa agency. Of course, they're doing this as a paid service, but they're experienced with these kinds of issues, and they can give advice to the startups. But it's exactly those situations that we want to help avoid and support the founders as much as we can.
Yeah, and in that sense, what do you think needs to happen? What discourse needs to happen in terms of shifting and speeding issues like that up within the German government in order to promote more startups coming into the ecosystem?
Well, actually, honestly, this is not a migrant problem. This is a German bureaucratic problem. As you probably know, the Startup-Verband is super active, trying to do all kinds of things to reduce the bureaucracy and the tax burden around founding a startup. So these problems you're describing, to some extent, everybody has them. But of course, if it's a foreign language, it's doubly challenging and really, really tough. But I think in general, the German society needs to loosen up in terms of welcoming entrepreneurship. The German society is still very risk averse. So I think the openness to trying out stuff, doing something different, looking different, all of that is still lacking in Germany. And honestly, I think I'm lucky we're in a bubble here in Berlin, which is a very cosmopolitan place. But I think in other parts of Germany, it's not that welcoming, and it's even more difficult.
Yeah. So we spoke about bootstrapping and access to capital. How do you guys in Vision Lab go about funding these startups in terms of once you get them into the cohort, do they get a certain loan that they have to pay back, or how does the funding actually happen once they are awarded a position within the cohort?
It's the same for everybody. So once you're admitted, you are eligible for the funding, and it's not a loan. It is called a convertible loan, but what this really is an instrument to turn into equity. So it will be converted after 18 months maximum into a participation in the company. And the loans are quite startup friendly. It's a conventional, typical 25% discount to the investment round when the equity investment happens. There is a forced conversion. So the startup cannot default by not repaying the loan. There's no obligation to repay the loan. If either side demands a conversion, it will be converted. And the cap, the maximum valuation of the fund, we're very flexible and we accept whatever the startup can actually get in the market, because we don't have the objective of doing a cheap investment. We want them to succeed. So the cap will be determined by what the startups can get in third-party offers. And as I mentioned, everybody in the program, every startup that's admitted is eligible for the convertible loan, but they don't have to take it. It's not an obligation.
Okay, so you can still be part of the cohort without actually accepting the loan itself.
But of course, large part of the value is after the program, if you have Earlybird in your cap table, that generally gives a good impression and helps with the next and additional fundraising.
Yeah, it definitely does. Having the name there, having known that you've received funding from the organization will help as well. So as an impact investor, what role do you think investors and VC play in terms of fostering this open environment for funding, especially if you look at the gap of funding that immigrants founders find, women founders find? How can that be shifted where everyone is receiving an equal amount of funding within the ecosystem?
Yeah, it's a slow movement. It's happening. I think there's more and more people who are aware, investors who are aware of this. But again, this is a very German thing. The term impact investing sounds like an oxymoron to Germans because they say, well, if I want to help people, I give to charity.
Yeah.
And the charity should not make a profit. The people who are working at the charity shouldn't make a profit. They should work for a penny. And if I invest, I want to invest to maximize profit, and I don't want to care about other things. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but basically that's sort of this German dichotomy, right? It's black or white. And it's changing. The younger generation of investors, particularly if you talk about family offices, they have a more nuanced view of this. And they say, we only want to make investments that do have an impact. Yeah. And diversity, of course, is one of the big factors of impact. And it started with female founders. There's a lot of money and funds and accelerators and activity dedicated to female founders. In terms of accelerators, I believe there's only one regularly operating accelerator or incubator for migrant founders as ours, which is called TMA, the Migrant Accelerator. There's, as far as I know, only one other fund that is explicitly investing in migrant founders. It's called Backbone. And in fact, it's based out of Switzerland. So it's not even a German fund. I think it's really difficult, or not difficult, but it's a slow journey for people to understand that diversity is not charity. Impact investing is not charity. It's supporting a very strong group of entrepreneurs and founders and investing in them.
Yeah. So currently within Germany, there's this large talk of lessening the restriction in terms of immigrants coming in, giving them opportunities, because there's a job crisis within Germany. So in order to build startups, the idea of startup is to create new job opportunities. But there's a lot of jobs in Germany, and a lot of people are being shifted to kind of, we have open space. So how can entrepreneurship be this space where you're like, there's other opportunities being available where innovation can happen within the entrepreneurship space? How can that discourse be shifted in Germany?
Well, I think, first of all, it's a bit schizophrenic because Germany, on the one hand, complains about all these foreigners coming in. On the other hand, the economy is aging and there are not enough people to do jobs. So you can't have it both ways. Either you die out or you bring in a new labor force. And where does it come from? So obviously immigration is necessary just demographically for Germany. Otherwise, it's not going to work. And in terms of creating jobs and high quality jobs, of course, entrepreneurship and startups is is the most highly valued, most high value adding activity. So it's really necessary. And if you look back, the so-called Gründergeneration after World War II, it was entrepreneurs who basically started the German economic miracle, who started these hidden champions. These were what you today call startup founders, except that they didn't get venture capital funding. They really were bootstrapping, or they got a loan from their local Sparkasse, and they built amazing technological products. This is how Germany became a technological giant, founded by German entrepreneurs after the war. And now there's not enough of them, and so we need more entrepreneurs. And I think migrant entrepreneurs is a great opportunity to create these new startups, businesses, and jobs.
Yeah, because you are re-innovating the system. You're bringing more people in with new ideas.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, and on that, so you use Earlybird uses Silicon Valley as this case study, as this proof of how building a diverse ecosystem can be this good thing that can help grow the economy, bring new ideas, and bring fresh innovation within the ecosystem. How does fostering this type of environment can help the benefit Germany as a whole in terms of bringing new ideas into the system, new companies growing, and more unicorns being built within the German ecosystem?
I think you gave the answer, right? To me, it's a no-brainer, but of course, many people still think in cliches or think in stereotypes. And I think the answer is obvious. You need to bring in fresh ideas, different perspectives. And so we support that. And in fact, it's maybe a bit like arbitrage, right? Because other people don't see it and they don't invest. So maybe we have an advantage here.
Yeah, you do, because you were at the door before everyone else gets there, and then you get the fresh ideas coming in. So what are the key policies? You spoke about certain things. What if you had an opportunity to this is what I would want to change, or this is what I would like to see happen within the German ecosystem that helps you? I mean, what's that one thing you would want to change?
Well, there's one thing which goes beyond just our migrant startups. As I mentioned, they're pretty much all in the pre-seed stage. So when we bring them in, they have an MVP and they have maybe some pilot customers. And when they graduate, typically they're looking for 1 million euros, the typical pre-seed round size. And that is a investment category, which is completely underfunded institutionally. There's lots of funds that do the typical seed and A round tickets between 1 million to 10 million, maybe even more. But there's almost no funds that regularly, constantly do lots and lots of smaller tickets from, say, 100,000 to 500,000. That's the sweet spot for pre-seed funds. And there literally is only a handful. In Germany, this burden is on angels. So the startups, most of the startups that do get pre-seed financing, get it from angels. Very little institutional money. And that, I think, is sort of an opportunity, and it's something that's missing here. And I think it would tremendously strengthen the German ecosystem. There's a couple of such pre-seed funds in France and the UK. I believe they have some tax benefits, which promotes this kind of investing. In Germany, it doesn't seem to be efficient, so there's very, very few funds that really do this.
So on that notion, what are you looking ahead in terms of Vision Lab's future plans and inspiration in terms of supporting immigrant founders and creating more platforms such as Vision Lab?
The more the merrier. I wish there were more, and we are already cooperating very strongly with other platforms like Two Hearts is a very strong partner. As you may have heard, they just set up the Angel Collective. So starting out just as a community of entrepreneurs, migrant entrepreneurs and founders, they now actually have angels who do investments. So this is the kind of thing that I would like to see more of. And we are working with everybody in the ecosystem who is interested in supporting this.
And so with that, how do you foresee the entrepreneurship landscape, or not just the immigrant landscape, but the whole global startup landscape in the next, let's say, 5 to 10 years? changing, shifting, especially currently with the Discord being around AI being the new thing that's everyone is gravitated to? What vision do you see foreseeing changing or happening within the next few years?
Okay, I don't have a crystal ball. Otherwise, I would run my own big fund. It's very hard to say. I mean, there's been a couple of trends. At first, startups were just given really big shitloads of money to just run and scale, and then all of a sudden, people got scared and said, "Oh, they're not making money."
Yeah.
Oh, what an insight! So now it's turned around. Valuations have come down a little bit, which I think is reasonable and makes sense. What I'm saying is there's lots of hypes, and then venture capital investors run after them, and it becomes a little bit crazy. And I think it would be helpful if there were more down-to-earth venture capital investors who create stable growth rather than hypes, which peak and then crash because too much was promised. I think with AI, there's a big danger on that front as well. Lots of promises, lots of hype, lots of fake, and I think the real benefit will be huge, but it still needs to shake out what's real value and what's not. I think we've seen it before with crypto and other trends. And by the way, on crypto, I think on blockchain as a technology, the jury is still out. I think with cryptocurrencies, it's clear it's a speculation thing, and some people want to play. And as long as it doesn't make the system crash, let the players play.
Yeah.
But that's not something that will drive our future. I think what's a very positive development is that there's now finally awareness that there's money to be made in clean tech. It always seemed like, oh, this is hardware, this is boring, we're not going to make money. Saving the environment is going to be such a big drain on the economy. It's such a burden. We're all going to be poor or live in a clean environment. And finally, people have figured out that's actually something where really, really big money can be made. So finally, there's investments available for clean tech, which I think is super important because that's the future for us and our children.
Definitely. And so as we get to the end of our conversation, what advice would you have for any inspiring entrepreneur that's wanting to go into the system, especially immigrant entrepreneurs that are wanting to jump into the system, that I don't know what to do, I don't know where to start? What advice would you give to them?
One general one, think hard whether you really want to be an entrepreneur. I think it's become a little bit fashionable I have to start a company. I want to be a startup founder. It's a really hard road, and you need to think about whether this is your thing. And a very specific advice, of course, the best way to start a startup here in Berlin is the Exist program, where you will get a stipend of 2,000 euros per month paid by the government for 10 or 12 months inside an incubation program. These are earlier than we are, so this is actually a great start for people who think they want to be an entrepreneur, who think they have an idea, but they still have to get the product market fit and get some advice. So I would highly recommend apply for an Exist program, join it, or something like Antler, very similar, except that it's fully commercial as opposed to the Exist programs, which are financed by the government. Get into a program, a really, really early entrepreneur program, figure out whether this is your thing, spend 6 to 12 months working on your idea. And when you come out, I will be looking. So my main source of startups is the graduates from these programs. So I go to the demo days of the earlier incubators and accelerators, and I look for the best teams. And that's my main source of startups for the Vision Lab.
Yeah, so if graduates from those programs were looking for you, where can they find you?
Well, very easy. It's visionlab@earlybird.com. They can always find me. Just write me a mail and it's no problem.
Okay.
And other than that, check out if there's a demo day, you can come to the demo day. And on LinkedIn, on Earlybird, we announce everything.
Okay, perfect. And that's the end of our conversation. Thank you so much for being here. Quite enjoyed the conversation, enjoyed you writing down what you guys do. Quite enjoyed hearing about organizations that are helping immigrants, people from outside their own countries, giving them platforms to kind of thrive within their own ecosystem. So thank you so much for giving your time. Quite enjoyed this.
Okay. Thank you, Orion. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.